The Sports Town Podcast.
All right, I'm pleased to be joined by Jason Flynn of the Soccer Cards United podcast. How's it going, Jason?
Hey JJ, it's going really well. Thanks for having me on.
Yep, this is actually, in fact, the first time we're discussing soccer on this podcast, so I'm pretty excited.
What?
Yeah,
it's the global game, JJ.
So just kind of want to talk about the Super League. I know there's a lot of, it's pretty much dead right now as of this recording, but it was really interesting earlier this week. Can you tell us more about and how it would have probably ruined English football?
Yeah, so the Super League, a European Super League, is something that's been talked about for more than 50 years in football. One of the things that came out, or soccer, I'll just call it soccer for the purposes of this. 50 years ago, nearly or more than 50 years ago, 1964, there was an article written about a European Super League that would include various teams from England, Spain, Scotland at that time as well, France. And so it's always been something that's been talked about. Now, at the moment, Europe's top teams play in the Champions League, which is run by UEFA, who are the European Federation. And then on Sunday, we had an announcement all of a sudden, out of nowhere, from 12 European teams who called themselves top teams, but really the 12 richest teams in Europe. So that was from England, you had Manchester United, Manchester City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham Hotspur, and those six. And then from Spain, you had Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, and Real Madrid. And then from Italy, you had Juventus, AC Milan, and Inter Milan. And those 12 clubs came out in a joint statement and said that they were going to form a breakaway Super League outside of any jurisdiction of UEFA or any other federation, a private competition, that there was going to be 20 teams each year. There'd be 15 founding members. They had 12. They wanted to add 3 more. They were currently recruiting for 3 more. And that there'd be 5 guest spots every year. But crucially, unlike any other soccer competition on earth, actually except the MLS, which is interesting, there would be no relegation for the founding members. So the founding members would be there every year, which means they would get to split up the TV money every year, which is a lifeline for some of these clubs that have spent and have very large piles of debt.
And also, I heard that if this would have been formed, the players who played on those teams wouldn't be allowed to play at the World Cup, which is like a dream for a lot of these guys when they're younger. Why did they want to do this? And do you think the players actually were wanting to do this instead of actually playing for their team in the for country in the World Cup?
Yes, so that's interesting. That was one of the things that immediately came out from UEFA and to a lesser extent from FIFA, or obviously the global federation who run the World Cup. And UEFA said any player that's playing in this breakaway Super League and therefore going against what UEFA wants will not be able to represent their country in UEFA competition. So if a European player, you won't be able to play in the European Championships, and they will not be eligible to play in the World Cup because they would essentially be stepping outside of the global soccer structure. And obviously the players reacted very badly to this. There was multiple reports that inside clubs, especially in English clubs, there were confrontations between the players and the hierarchies at the club because the owners of the clubs had gone and negotiated this themselves without really taking into account how the players would react. And the players went and said, we are absolutely not going to play in a competition if it means we're going to stop playing for our country. Because for a lot of footballers, that is their highest honor, is to play for your country, especially at a World Cup. But why did the clubs want to do this? Very simple, money. So European football has been locked for the last 25 years in an arms race. For want of a better word, there is ever increasing wage bills at these clubs. There's ever increasing transfer fees. And we've also seen in the last 20 years, a couple of clubs around Europe being bought by oil or gas money. So we have in England, you have Chelsea, who are owned by Russian oligarch Roman Abramovich, who made his money buying up natural resources in Russia after the fall of the USSR. You have Manchester City, who are owned by essentially by the United Arab Emirates, or by a holding company which is owned by the United Arab Emirates. And then you have Paris Saint-Germain in France, who are owned essentially by the state of Qatar, also in the Middle East. So you have these clubs with huge wealth. In the case of Manchester City and PSG, they're essentially sovereign wealth funds that run these clubs, and nobody else can compete with these. So when you have clubs like Real Madrid, Barcelona, Manchester United to a lesser extent. They're spending and spending and spending, and they don't have the endless reserves, so they have to spend on debt. So they've built up these really big piles of debt, and TV money is drying up. They've basically maxed out how much TV money they can get. And so what they wanted to do was play more games against the best teams, because obviously, as you can imagine, every year in the Champions League, the highest ratings go to Real Madrid playing Liverpool, top teams from around the world, Juventus playing Barcelona. And so they said, why don't we just do that every week? We'll just play. Why are we playing against these lesser teams and teams that no one's ever heard of? Teams in Belgium, teams in Holland, which obviously people have heard of them, but they're not very popular. Let's just play each other every week. We're the best, aren't we? And it was a very greedy kind of move.
Yeah, I recently heard, you were speaking of money. I heard a lot of the owners that wanted to do this were U.S. owners. Or people from the U.S. Do you think that was because I know a lot of the stuff here in the U.S. is a lot of the owners are very greedy and stuff like that. Do you think the reason why the Super League wanted to be formed is because most U.S. owners just want to make the money?
I mean, there is a bit of that. The main drivers two of the main drivers of the Super League were Florentino Perez, who is the president of Real Madrid. So he's a Spanish businessman. And then you have Andrea Agnelli, who is the president of Juventus, and he's an Italian businessman. His family they started Fiat, the car company. But then get to the Americans. So you have the Glazer family, or a family of billionaires that own Manchester United and have taken hundreds of millions of dollars out of Manchester United. And then you have John Henry, who owns the Fenway Sports Group, FSG, who own Liverpool. And the American part really is not so much about the money, because the Spanish owners, the Italian owners, they're greedy as well. But what comes from the Americans is it's a closed league, as I said. So for instance, nobody gets relegated in the NFL. Nobody gets relegated in the MLB. If you don't make the playoffs, okay, you don't make the playoffs, but you just go again the next year. You still get to play all the best teams. There's no case of, well, you didn't beat the Patriots this year, so they're not coming to your town next year. When you get to sell all your merch and all your highest ratings, you know what I mean? So what struck people in terms of Americanization was not so much the money. Everyone's hungry for money. Capitalism, a global game at this stage. What struck people was this closed system, that for some reason these people will be forming a closed league, pulling the rope ladder up and not letting anybody in after them. And because from the American owners, the reports were Rory Smith in the New York Times did very good reporting on this, where he spoke to people close to some American owners, and they said, if I've invested hundreds of millions in this club, or if I own this asset worth hundreds of millions or billions, and I could miss out on the Champions League, which would cut our revenues, or I could get relegated from the Premier League, which would cut our revenues, why would I allow my business? Because that the Americans view it as businesses, not clubs, franchises. We never use that word to describe a football club or soccer club, a franchise. A franchise is an American sports term. Why would I allow the value of my assets, or why would I allow my yearly income to be determined on a refereeing decision that gets me relegated, or a video refereeing decision that means I don't qualify for the Champions League? I'm not willing to put up with that kind of jeopardy. I'm going to close the loop, and the rich will get richer.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like what college football here in the States is trying to do. They basically have something called a college football playoff, which is the 4 best teams, but usually it's the 4 biggest names. Even if a team goes undefeated, like 12 or 13-0, they probably won't go in, because like a team like Central Florida a few years ago, they were really good, but they didn't get in because they weren't a big name. So unless you're like Alabama or Ohio State or Clemson, it seems a lot like that. And I feel like in college football, the NCAA is supposed to be the governing body, but really it's the Power 5 that rules the conference, like the Big 10, the Big 12, the ACC, the SEC, the Pac-12. They rule more of, and a lot of people expect them to break away as well. So I don't know, it sounded a lot like that, and it's really interesting. And yeah, again, at the end of the day, I think it just goes by money, and teams, again, as you pointed out, don't want to get relegated. Is there another? Do you think they'll try this again in future years?
So it's interesting. The president of Real Madrid, who was elected the first chairman of this Super League, even though it's kind of ceased to exist now, but he still insists it's still there. Florentino Perez, he's had a couple of very revealing and I mean, borderline crazy appearances on Spanish television and radio this week. And he said, look, the teams have a contract. They all sign binding contracts. This is a 23-year agreement. This is not dead. We can still do this. The president of Barcelona agreed with him in a press conference yesterday. And the Juventus president is still on the fence. They will try this again. What's going to stop them is they may have overplayed their hand. I've never seen a unified reaction, especially in England, but also in continental Europe. I've never seen a unified reaction to something in football like this. Fans from teams that hate each other were coming together. You know, pundits on TV that never stop arguing were coming together. The British government said, we're going to stop the Premier League teams doing this. We're going to put an independent commission in to regulate English football because this has become too commercialized. The European Union said, we're going to stop the European teams from doing this. UEFA stepped in. Everybody stepped in. And for instance, to give you one example, so UEFA have representation from the biggest clubs. So I guess like how the NCAA, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they would have representation from these big federations of college teams. So UEFA have the European Clubs Association, which is the representative body for the clubs. And as you can imagine, the biggest clubs have seats, and then they have seats on UEFA's Executive Council. As part of this breakaway, the 12 clubs all resigned their positions in the European Club Association and therefore resigned their representative power to UEFA. And in stepped the president of Paris Saint-Germain, Nasser Al-Khelaifi. So he stepped in. He's now the chairman of the European Club Association. And this guy was the boogeyman of European football 10 years ago, you know, when the Qataris came in and bought PSG with their unlimited oil money. But now he's the most powerful figure, theoretically, in European club football. The president of Bayern Munich, another huge team who didn't get involved, he's now the European club delegate on UEFA's Executive Council. So what you've seen is Juventus's president was up there, Barcelona's president was up there, Real Madrid's president was up there, and they overplayed their hand. They tried to break away. They tried to perform a coup, essentially. And now, you're back at the bottom of the queue. You're back at the bottom of the line because you messed up, and then you have to start again, and the power balance has shifted. So you tried to break away, you failed, and then you have to come back in, but you're not going to come back in at the stature you were in. I mean, for instance, the president of Juventus, right, Agnelli, his daughter, when she was, I guess, christened, because big Catholics in Italy, you know, the president of UEFA stood as her godfather. Those two men were very, very close. They're working together on Champions League reform all the time. In a press conference on Monday, Alexander Ceferin, the UEFA president, called Agnelli a snake, said, I've never known somebody to lie so much. So the power balance has changed in European football. I don't think they're going to try it again anytime soon, but who knows?
You said it still technically exists. Who were the teams remaining, and is there a chance that those teams try to get like new other teams that haven't been able to get in yet?
So the teams remaining, as far as we know, are Real Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus haven't said they're leaving officially, and then AC Milan. AC Milan apologized for the fiasco, but didn't actually say they were leaving. AC Milan are owned by an American vulture capitalist called Paul Singer, and he's very much in favor of stuff like this. And they haven't actually said they're leaving. So as far as people haven't said they're leaving, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus, AC Milan. Will they be able to recruit more teams? No, because the whole point of the Super League was that the best teams in air quotes, the biggest teams, the richest teams, the most watched teams would all be playing each other week in, week out. Now you've got all of those biggest teams to join, and then most of them left. And there was already some people who didn't join in the first place. So they wouldn't be able to find, there aren't another 12 teams big enough for the whole thing to go ahead. And also, just today we heard from JP Morgan. So the whole thing was funded by JP Morgan. $5 billion they put up to fund this thing. And they said, we'll fund it and you can work the TV rights out later, but we'll pay for it for the first few years. And JP Morgan came out today and said, listen, we misjudged how vicious the reaction would be. We're sorry. We misjudged it. We're withdrawing our support for this. So now you have the money's gone And I mean, if you just think about it, this is a group of people that appeared so greedy and so corrupt and so capitalistic that JP Morgan came out and said, whoa, 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 this is all a bit much. I mean, it's mind blowing.
That is crazy. It was just unbelievable. On Monday, I just was heard, or it was actually, I think Sunday when I started hearing it first about the Super League, how it was going to come together. And then like on Tuesday it was pretty much shut down, or Tuesday or Wednesday. And it just everybody, I think, like said, as you said, came together and just said, yeah, no, we're not going to do this. So I'm going to get off the Super League for just a little bit here.
Sure.
About Messi's contract with Barcelona. What's the deal there? I know he wanted to leave, I think, before the season started. I think he wanted to go to Man City. Would you think he could? Do you see a scenario where he actually leaves Barcelona after the season is over?
Great question. Messi is having a little bit of a renaissance at the minute. I mean, I don't mean in terms of his output. His output has always been incredible in terms of his goal scoring and his creation on the pitch. But I mean, kind of within Barcelona, he had a very, very poor relationship with the last administration of Barcelona, the last president of Barcelona. That's when that famous Burofax, which I guess is a kind of a legally binding document that you can deliver in Spain. It's a legal instrument. But he sent this Burofax to say he was going to leave Barcelona. He's ending his contract and he wanted to leave. Then they convinced him to stay for another season. But in the meantime, there's been a presidential election at Barcelona. The new president is the man who was president when Messi came through. Messi is scoring goals again. He's playing with young teammates who can play around him, who have energy, who have a bit of life. He seems to be happier. His goals and assists have gone way up. He's dragged Barcelona back into the title race in the Spanish La Liga. I honestly think he will stay. One of the reasons Barcelona are in so much debt is because Messi's contract is huge. And I'm sure there's people in the accounting department of Barcelona that would love him to go and get him off their books. But Messi has never been really that kind of superstar who seems like he's unhappy, who seems to always want more and more and more. He's so settled in Barcelona. He's been there since he was a boy. I think he'll stay. If they win, they've already won the Copa del Rey, which is the cup, this season. They might win the league. But I think if Messi is convinced of the team around him and he's convinced they have a good shot at winning some trophies next season, I think he might just stay, and I think he might stay for another couple of years and then finish his career maybe with a year in Argentina back home.
All right, yeah, I was just intrigued by what happened last year, and I really hadn't heard much about it. So it'd been interesting because if he would have left Barcelona, that would have been really big.
Huge.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that you're a big La Liga fan. So can you give us an update with that? And of course, the Champions League is going on right now. So can you just give an update on that?
Sure. Yeah. So I personally follow Atletico Madrid in La Liga, who are kind of in the past 10 years have added themselves into the yearly title race. So traditionally, Barcelona and Real Madrid are the big teams in Spain. Atletico have had a good run of it in the last 10 years under manager Diego Simeone. Currently, Atletico are first in the league, 1 point ahead of Real Madrid. There's 6 matches left to go in the season. And Barcelona are 1 point behind Real Madrid. So it's extremely tight. Atletico in first place and Barcelona in third place still have to play each other. So if Atletico win all their games, including beating Barcelona, they'll win the league. If Barcelona win all their games, including beating Atletico Madrid, they'll win the league. Of course, only one of those can happen. So it's all very tight. It's all very exciting. Sevilla are also in there. And there's only one team left from Spain in the Champions League, which is Real Madrid. So Real have an upcoming Champions League semi-final against Chelsea. And the other Champions League semi-final is PSG versus Man City. Now, Manchester City have never gotten to the semi-final of the Champions League before. So they'll be looking to push on to the final. They're playing last year's finalist, Paris Saint-Germain. And it's all very exciting. I mean, the Champions League, with all the Super League talk, you'd forget about how good the Champions League actually is when it's good. I mean, we recently saw PSG knock out Bayern Munich, and those 2 games in that series were one of the most incredible ties I've ever seen. Just the level of football was insane. Kylian Mbappe and Neymar are at Paris Saint-Germain. And speaking of Messi, at Manchester City, there is Sergio Aguero, as the Argentine centre forward. And he has been talked about as moving to Barcelona, maybe to link up with Messi. They're very good friends and have some familial ties as well. They're both from Argentina. So there's lots going on. I would say anyone who doesn't watch soccer regularly, I know you've got really good. I think the Champions League is covered by maybe CBS at the moment. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've quite good coverage. I know Jamie Carragher and Micah Richards are on there sometimes. They're good pundits. But definitely watch PSG versus Man City. If you're ever going to get into soccer, if you're ever going to enjoy a soccer game, it's going to be PSG versus Man City.
Do you think, or who do you think has the best chance to win this year's Champions League?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot here. Well, it's hard. PSG were in the final last year. They'd never gotten to a final before. And in Neymar and Mbappe, they have maybe the competition's two best players this season. And they're up against Man City, who are going to win the league in England. I think for that tie, I would probably put PSG to go through just because they got to the final last year. They're on good form. And I think Man City might just slip up. The pressure might get to them. On the other side, you have Real Madrid and Chelsea. Chelsea have been a dark horse. Chelsea could win it. They always could. You know, they knocked Manchester City out of a domestic cup last week. But I'm not going to say Chelsea are going to win. Then you have Real Madrid. Now, Real Madrid have won the Champions League 13 times, right? That's basically twice as much as anyone else has ever won it. And Zinedine Zidane, who people will know is a very famous international star, he manages them, he coaches them. And Zidane's Real Madrid have a backbone like no other team I've ever seen. They just are incredible winning machines. It's very difficult to tell when you watch them what makes them so good. You just know they're really good. So I'm going to say, and I'm an Atletico Madrid fan, so this really pains me to say because they're a city rival, but I think Real Madrid are going to win the Champions League this year and make it 14, I believe, 14 European Cups.
Wow, that's crazy. They're like the Boston Celtics of the Champions League.
Yeah, they're just unbelievably prolific. And I would say, I'm going to say Real.
Okay.
But I hope not.
Yeah. All right. This has been a great conversation. Learned a lot about soccer. I know last week I learned a lot about Formula One. Before we end the interview, do you want to tell us more about your podcast, how long you've been doing it, just kind of more information about it?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for coming on, or thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it. So I co-host a podcast called Soccer Cards United. We've been doing that for around 10 months now. We're just coming up on a year. And that was started by myself and my friend Enzo, because soccer had last year and the year before kind of a boom in trading cards. So I guess being into sports, you're familiar with baseball cards, NBA cards, all that stuff. And soccer is kind of the new boom market in that. But a lot of people that were getting into soccer cards, a lot of them based in the States, like yourself, they knew the card side of it. They knew trading cards. They knew all about that, but they didn't really know soccer. So we started a podcast where people who are into trading cards, high end, low end, all that stuff, can listen to the podcast and get everything they need to learn about soccer at a kind of a summary basis and recommendations on what to watch and what to follow. So it's called Soccer Cards United. We cover the latest football news every week. And then there's some stuff about trading cards as well.
All right. That definitely intriguing. Definitely got to go check that out. Oh, yeah.
And you can get it wherever you listen to podcasts. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere. And you can follow us on Twitter, Soccer Cards United.
Okay. Definitely learned a lot about soccer. The guys, don't forget to check their podcast. Is like they mentioned, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, pretty much wherever you get your podcast. All right. Yep. Thanks for coming on, and definitely had a wonderful time talking about soccer.
Thanks, JJ.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Town Podcast, or the STP Pod for short. If you want to check out more videos of the Sports Town Podcast, click on the left. If you want to subscribe to the channel, click on the right.